I think we will look back when the history of this war is written, back to the last 6 months as really the last 6 months that may well become the turning point. It was always the case that the Ukrainians needed more capabilities, they needed more ammunition, they needed more air defense systems in order to defend their capabilities, and they needed more manpower. They only started working on the manpower issue a couple of months ago, and that's going very, very slow, much too slow in order to fill the slots that they need to fill to hold the line. But, you know, you can have as many men if they don't have any bullets to fire or shells to shoot. It doesn't really matter. And the United States was the linchpin and remains the linchpin of the armaments that the Ukrainians require. The rest of the world just doesn't have enough in their stockpiles, and the Congress refusing to act on the request that the president first made back in July. That's the last time he made a $13 billion request, and nothing happening until mid-April. And now it's just taken, you know, it just takes time to get stuff to the front and get it across the border and to the units in the quantities to make it happening. And the Russians have decided they're going to take the advantage of the hole that was created. And they're trying to punch through left and right. They just have more people, they have more guns, and they, importantly, it looks like they have more and better morale, which makes them willing to do things that otherwise people aren't willing to do. At the same time, things aren't going well on the Ukrainian side. Yeah, so this is a very tough period.
Now, Ivo, the latter point surprises me a little bit. I understand why Ukrainian morale would be challenging given the lack of support and military capacity in the past months. But of course, the Ukrainians are fighting for their homeland. The Russians are not.
Well, it's relative, of course. Ukrainian morale in that sense is better, but it was down on the Russian side. It was negative. The pilots weren't willing to fly because they were afraid of being shot down. They didn't know why they would be shot down. Now there's less air defense, so they're less likely to be shot down. And these glide bombs that we have been hearing about, these are just old World War II bombs with some modern kit that gives them wings to fly about 40 kilometers. These airplanes are now flying closer to the line. They're more willing to take risks. They actually see results. And, you know, war is about momentum. If you got it, then morale is on your side. And if you're on the other side, you're just running back constantly, that's going to have an impact on morale. We still don't think that the Russians have a sufficient number of offensive capabilities to really either break through or make a breakthrough. Unless we rush more air defenses in to start defending these cities against the ballistic missile attacks, against the drone attacks, the level of destruction has gone up significantly. About 80% of the power generating capacity inside Ukraine has now been destroyed. Yeah, it's a dire situation, and it really, I think, means we need to have a debate. We need to start having a conversation about how serious is this, and are we going to accept this? We've been saying for 2 years we will do everything we can to allow Ukraine to defend itself. We've also said that it is our strategic interest that Russia not succeed. Well, it's succeeding. And so that can't be in our strategic interest. And as a result, what are we going to do about it? We have military power. We have capabilities we could send in larger quantities. We have, you know, troops, and I'm in the Baltic states right now. That's what they're talking about. Maybe we should thinking about relieving some of the forces in the West by deploying and training sites over there and doing other things in order for the Ukrainians to continue to fight in the East. Now, but if you're a German military planner, you say, okay, how likely is it that I will need some of those forces in case the war does spread? You don't want to leave your own forces naked. However, and I think this is the debate we need to have, can we afford not to succeed in Ukraine? And in fact, if we don't succeed in Ukraine, what does that mean for the security of NATO writ large when you will have to deploy all the Patriot systems? Same is true for the United States. These are the kinds of strategic decisions that, frankly, no one has been wanting to have that discussion, but I think we're getting to a point where it's necessary because failure is not an option, as they say. It's not an option for the Ukrainians, but it's not an option for NATO, and it's not an option for us. Failing in Ukraine is a failure of NATO. It's a failure of the United States that will have huge repercussions for our security in the long run. That's kind of what's been lost in this debate about whether or not we're going to send $60 billion to Ukraine. In the meantime, things have gone really bad.